The X-Men were animated starting in the 60s through the 90s was the heyday, and then in the 2000s, you had the kind of subpar stuff, So in the 60s, we had the Marvel superheroes, which were cartoon shorts. It ran only in 1966. As you can see, the animation looks crazy, but it's very 60s. You see Cyclops, Jean Grey's there, but back then she was known as Marvel Girl. Angel, you got Beast, who wasn't blue yet, and then Iceman. After that, I think was when it really started getting popular, and this is around the time I first knew about the X-Men. Probably Damon too.
Same.
80s, right? You had SpiderMan and His Amazing Friends, which ran from 81 until 83, but then they reran reruns throughout that decade, and I think into the early 90s, right, D?
Yeah. I mean, it started to phase out like in mid '80s, like late, and then they started to just, But Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends was like I religiously watched that.
Yeah. So 81 to 83, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's when X-Men, a lot of the kids from the 80s really started to get to know X-Men. Uh, and then we got in 1989, this one was a flop. It was just a pilot, Pride of the X-Men. As you can see, that's not Captain Marvel there for all you out there. That's Dazzler. They never got to show this in a full series in 89. I guess they didn't have faith in it. So instead, they released it as a VHS, and it was the plot was surrounding Kitty Pryde. Not a lot of people were interested in Kitty Pryde at the time, unfortunately. So it was just released as a VHS. But the video game came out based on this. You remember this one, right?
Well, it came out in arcade first.
Yeah. It had like that gauntlet, right? That gauntlet kind of gameplay, right?
Yeah. So, and it was a very Konami style game. It was sort of like
it was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade game too.
Right. Exactly.
So after that, that's when things started heating up. We got the animated series from 92 to 97. Part of the inspiration to this animated series was the Batman animated series, because that was a hit for Warner Brothers, coming out in 1990. And X-Men, the animated series, was sort of the response to that. And both of those cartoons were groundbreaking.
This and Spider-Man, right? These are the Spider-Man animated series kind of came out around the same time frame.
Exactly. So X-Men 97 picks up right after this. Like I said before, there were other X-Men cartoons that came out that were sort of hit or miss. We had XMen Evolution, and what was the other one?
Wolverine and his X-Men. None of them were hits though. Like none of them were like bangers by any means.